important, a delay in help. You may not receive, professional medical services, help from the firefighters, help from the police, because they're going to be tending to the actual disaster. So the goal is you really want to be self-sufficient after a disaster, and you want to be the one providing aid to people, not the other way around. But we can be ready, and I'm going to talk about how we can do that. So I'm going to talk about the 3 steps that it takes to be Red Cross ready, and they are to get a kit, make a plan, and be informed. Just a show of hands, who out here has a disaster supplies kit at home? All right. Very good. Anyone care to tell me what you have inside of it? Oh, a lot of things.
Beer.
Wine is actually a really great idea. I think.
Why not disaster style?
All right, so can anybody tell me what the 4 most important things are to have in your disaster supplies kit? Water. Water is number 1 by far the most important thing to have set aside. What's number 2? Food. Water, food. What else? It's important, but it's not one of the top 4.
Change of clothes. First aid kit.
First aid kit. First aid kit. And the 4th?
It's the battery.
Prescription medicine.
Very good, very good. Medication. So water. The general rule is you want to have 1 gallon of water per person per day set aside.
3 days.
But yeah, 3 days is the minimum. The minimum usually.
Yeah, you'll find that hole.
Food. You want to have food that doesn't have to be refrigerated, cooked, doesn't require water to eat, has a long shelf life. Canned food is a great idea, but make sure you include a can opener. And finally, you want to make sure that you include food that you and your family enjoy eating. I heard Spam over here, but if you don't like Spam, don't put Spam in your kit. If you don't like green beans, don't put green beans in your kit. Include food that you enjoy eating. If a disaster does happen, it's going to be a stressful time. You're going to want to eat food that you like. Okay? So first aid kit, again, there may be a delay in help, including professional medical help. So you want to be able to have those supplies so you can provide aid to your family, or they can provide aid to you. And then medications, having a small supply of the current medications that you're taking is a really great idea in case you're in a bind or in case your store of medications is destroyed. But just including a list of all your current medications in your kit can be really helpful as well, so that you have the list on hand if you have to go out and get them filled. So in addition to those 4 items, these are also really important things to have. A flashlight, disaster can happen at any time of day or night. A radio, as I mentioned previously, power might be down and phone lines might be down. The radio may be your only way of knowing what's going on around you. You also want to include batteries for both of these items. Pet supplies, if you have pets, if you have a dog, a cat, include some food and some water for them. Important papers, copies of important documents, driver's license, deed to your home, insurance papers, credit card statements, anything that you might need to identify yourself with after a disaster, or identify ownership of after a disaster, is a really good idea to make a copy of and put that in your kit as well. And contact information. Imagine if you couldn't access all the numbers in your cell phone, or you can't plug your cell phone into the wall because there's no power to access numbers and contact information. You want to make sure that you write down, the number, address of friends, family, doctors, lawyers, insurance agents, anyone that you might need to contact after a disaster. Make sure you have their contact information on hand. Okay? And then finally, cash. Cash is a great idea to put in your kit. The Red Cross recommends anywhere from $20 to $200. So, but it's really up to your discretion. You want to make sure you have small bills, have some ones, have some fives, have some change. If the power's out, ATMs won't be working and cash registers won't be working. So, put a little cash in there as well. So a personal kit, this would be something like a backpack, like shown. A sturdy container, something you can throw over your bag and take with you if you're running out the door, if you have to evacuate. And this should have 3 days of supplies for one person inside of it. Now, it's a good idea to think about all the places that you spend a significant amount of your time. So whether that be work, home, if you go to school, if you volunteer somewhere, if you're like me and you spend an awful lot of time commuting, driving places, think about those places and think about having a small storage of supplies in each one of those places. I know it sounds like a lot, but there's a good chance that you'll be in one of those places if a disaster happens. So you kind of just want to cover all your bases. As I mentioned, I spend a lot of time in my car, so I keep this on hand in my car, always. It has a first aid kit, it has a drinking pouch of water, like a whistle, glow stick, blanket, Mylar blanket. So it's just a good idea to cover all your bases and keep supplies in all of the places that you spend a lot of your time. And the family supply kit. So this should have 2 weeks of supplies in it. You would use this kit if, say, you were confined to your home for 2 weeks and no power, no clean water. This is the kit that you would use. In addition to all of the supplies that we talked about, you should have a change of clothes, maybe some hygiene items. If you have children, diapers, toys. You want to include things in this kit that will make you feel human if a disaster were to happen. Okay? And finally, the By the Bed mini kit. Does anybody know what the most common injury was of the Northridge earthquake? It was actually termed shredded feet. Because people hopped out of bed, the quake hit at I think 4 in the morning, hopped out of bed, there was debris, there was broken glass. A lot of people don't typically sleep with their shoes on, so they injured their feet trying to get to their family. So what you're going to do, you're going to take an old pair of sneakers, a flashlight, an extra pair of glasses if you wear glasses, put it in a grocery bag, and tie it to the post of your bed. That way, if something happens in the middle of the night, you'll be that much more prepared. Also, if an earthquake happens, the shoes and the flashlight will stay attached to your bed in case your bed moves in the middle of the night. Okay? Are there any questions?
Take it to bed with you.
Or just sleep with your shoes on. So one thing I want to mention, the last thing you want to do is put together a whole bunch of supplies, put them in the closet, put them in the garage, let them sit for 5 or 10 years. Then, bam, a disaster happens. And you go back through to use your supplies and something's spoiled, something's broken, something's spilled. You really want to make sure that any supplies you put aside, you're checking every 6 months. Go back through, eat the food that's going to expire. And remember, it's food that you enjoy anyways, so you're going to want to eat it and then replace it. So just make sure that you're checking all of your supplies and making sure everything's working properly. Maybe add something to your supply every time you check it. So now we're going to talk briefly about making a plan. Making a plan basically involves talking to family, friends, coworkers, and deciding what are we going to do if we're together and the worst happens. You want to have an out-of-state contact. If phone lines were to go down, usually the first to be restored are the long-distance lines, so it may be easier to contact someone out of state or out of the general affected area than it would be to call anyone locally. So you want to designate someone out of state that you know as your contact, and you'll just call them in case of an emergency and let them know that you're okay. And he or she can relay the message back to the rest of your family too, because they'll call her as well. You want to have 2 evacuation routes in your home, your workplace, your school, and 2 just in case one of them is blocked, you could take the other one. And you also want to have 2 meeting places. One of them should be right outside of your home. The other should be a little farther away outside of the neighborhood in case something happens that affects the entire neighborhood. And also include a plan for your pets. You don't want to leave them behind to fend for themselves.
Leave them in the room.
And you want to practice your plan 2 times a year. There's really no point in drawing up all sorts of elaborate evacuation plans if you don't practice it. The idea here is you want to be so well practiced in your evacuation routes and your meeting places that if something does happen, you almost go into autopilot. You go go through the motions of your plan, you get outside to safety, and then you panic.
You go down on the step. You can jump.
Alright, now we're going to talk really briefly about the last step in being Red Cross ready, which is to be informed. And congratulations, you are all doing that today by coming to this presentation. But I encourage you all to go further with your preparedness plans and your research. So you want to know how you'll be notified if a disaster happens. These are 2 local news stations for LA County that will broadcast if a disaster happens, what the evacuation plans are, because not every radio station will broadcast what's going on. But these 2 definitely will. Also the reverse 911, if you live in LA County and if you have a landline, you are already registered, and 911 will call you if something happens to let you know. If you don't have a landline, you can register your cell phone or your email account by going to this website. And if you guys want that, you can ask me for it afterwards. You want to know your surroundings. Smoke detectors, you want to have one outside of every bedroom on every level of your home. And you want to make sure you're checking the batteries every 6 months. The same amount of time that you want to check your emergency supplies kit. Maybe you could do those 2 things at the same time, perhaps. You want to know how to shut off your water, electricity, and gas. Locate the knobs, know where they are, know how to shut them off. Don't actually shut them off unless you need to. The rule with gas is you don't want to shut off your gas unless you smell gas. And also identify potential hazards in your home. This basically involves walking around and saying, what do I not want to fall on me in an earthquake? Which brings me to, what do we do if an earthquake happens right now?
Run.
I heard it right here, so, sort of. He said duck, cover, and hold. What you want to do is drop, cover, and hold. Close. You want to drop, cover, and hold underneath a sturdy piece of furniture. So these desks would work, for right now. Whatever you're getting underneath, you want to hold onto so that it doesn't shake out from over you. That's the general idea. So I heard run right over here. That might be okay in, say, 4.0 or a 5.0 magnitude. In an 8.0, it's going to be different. You don't want to try and go very far because you may not get very far. The basic idea is to pretty much stay close to wherever you are and just get underneath something to shield your head. Okay? The biggest concern for us in Southern California is not that our buildings are going to collapse. Our buildings are very well prepared for earthquakes. They've been through more than hundreds of earthquakes. They will most likely withstand it. It's going to be that things within the buildings are going to fall. So you just want to get underneath something, shield your head, and stay there until the shaking stops. If you're in bed, when an earthquake hits, what you want to do is you just want to stay there, cover your head with pillows, and wait until the shaking stops. But you want to make sure that you don't have any glass picture frames, mirrors, tall bookcases, anything right by your bed that could be a potential hazard. There's a 33% chance that an earthquake will happen while you're sleeping, so you want to make sure that your bed is a very, very safe space. If you're in a room with no furniture to get underneath, the best idea would be to get up against an interior wall, one that doesn't have, again, glass picture frames, windows above it. So this wall would probably be perfect, maybe right behind the flags, and you're just going to get up against the wall, kneel down, cover your head, and stay there until the shaking stops. And then driving, this is my last point. If you're driving, the best thing to do is to get off the road as quickly as you can, out in the open, out from under overpasses, billboards, telephone wires, street lamps. Get to the side, turn off the ignition. At that point, you're in a big steel box, so you're probably going to be okay. But that's the best recommendation. Are there any questions? Well, I think we're just about out of time, but I encourage you all to do one thing tonight. Maybe talk to your family at dinner about what would we do if a disaster happened, or find your gas shutoff valve, or maybe put together that little kit that I talked about with the shoes and the flashlight and the glasses.
Question here about water. Yes, what are the things you can take and boil water to make it safe? You can put, what, iodine in water?
You can put bleach in water. If you get one of those big jugs that are safe for water, they look like gasoline, plastic gasoline cans, and you put a tablespoon of bleach in the water. And that'll keep it for about 6 months.
Okay, so we've got two things, because water probably is the number one ingredient that we would need, right? We could get along with food for about a week, but water we need.
You can survive without food for maybe up to 3 weeks, but you can. It's not just that you won't survive without water. It's that after a while without water, you will not be able to think clearly and make sound decisions. And you're going to need to make sound decisions after a disaster. So that's the main issue. You want to be able to think clearly.
So
you need water.
that idea with a little bleach.
Little bleach. Also, they sell at the Army Navy surplus store. There's one up in Monrovia. They sell purification tablets. You throw that in any large container of water, and that'll stay good for 5 years. And also, if you just buy the water flats, the flats of water bottles, those will stay good for about 2 years. They're going to start to taste funny, but they'll still be good to drink after 2 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you guys have any other questions, I'll be here afterwards, and I have these little booklets for everyone. They have everything that I talked about today and more. So if you would like one, yes?